Hi, my name is Russ Edgington.
And I'm Alex Görding, professional horse trainer from Germany.
And we're coming to you today from professionalhorseservices.com to discuss probably one of the hottest topics out there in the dressage world today, which is what happened to Totilas.
Yes, Russ, that will be a very challenging thing for us to do. We will discuss a few videos that we have collected. In this particular segment of our discussion, we will compare rider styles and the impact on horses' performance, the aiding language, the way they use their body to support a horse to the most brilliant performance, or how they disguise certain things that might be not as perfect. So that will be some very interesting thing to watch.
Yeah, we've actually done some considerable research. We've chosen 8 different videos that are available to all of our viewers right on YouTube. And basically what we're going to do is look at the current rider, and then we're going to kind of step back and look at the different techniques that each one of the riders for Totilas have used, and see how that really influences the way the horse moves.
Yes, and we absolutely are aware that our whole commenting will probably steer a huge controversial view. So we are aware of that. Our intention mainly is to do something for the horse that probably, as I look at it, at the moment has really nobody talking for what it feels or what it wants to do, right? There's a lot of performance anxiety in the current couple, and I also can see by following the news and watching the comments that certain people make that there is a danger of a downfall of a whole dressage nation. And for that we will work on bringing some clarity to the public here.
So let's go ahead and start with our first video, and many of our viewers are going to recognize this video.
Yes, Russ, this is the video that we found on the internet at a stallion performance from, I would say, end of January, beginning February. Matthias Rath is here showing Totilas in Fechter at Schockenmühle Stallion Station, and we can see here the horse looks not so relaxed. What we will come down to is analyzing the rider's particular body language in comparison to the previous rider. So we will go back and forth. Here you can see already in this little tiny shoulder in what is happening here, that there is a tendency in the rider to sit a little bit off bend. The horse looks somewhat inconsistent in the contact, and there is some internal tension that will articulate on some clapping. You can see that here. And
well, I think that's something that we really need to point out, is how the rider deals with this spooking issue, because Totilas was not necessarily immune to spooking under Edward Gall, but
yeah. So why don't we rewind
yeah,
the spook, Russ, and just look one more time at the picture that we can see here. We go back with our little video here. Stop, yeah, and play it from here. So I want you to pay particular attention to this. The rider gets deep in the horse. His hands move backwards. He arches his back and frames his leg. So basically, he designs a triple confinement for the horse that you will see in our whole documentary. The horse is not had been so used to.
Mm-hmm. So driving the horse forward while at the same time confining the horse, which basically ends up in...
The horse is already in a tremendous forward motion because it's spooked, yeah? Mm-hmm. And so this impact of a seat, yeah, will drive it even further to the hands, and at the same time holds backwards, and the leg is framing. So here now we can see here down the long side, again we can see a misplacement of this rider. He's a little bit off to the right side. Basically you should always support to sit, support the bend by sitting where the bend is. And here we can see there's apparently a falling over the right shoulder, and the rider follows that rather than trying to create the correct bend. Here in this the piaffe or the passage, yeah, we would even see a mixed half step. He gets a little stiff in his back and gets very mobile in his neck and arching the back also. So there is a lot of defensive body signals, and now it will come to a situation here where the horse, it's a little tight in the neck, and we can see now already a tongue display, yeah, which is a major fault in accepting the bit. What happened? Somebody made it notice, and now they leave the ring. And so from here we will start our documentary. I think it's a very good spot to start, because the horse will basically leave the arena on a disastrous note.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and proceed. From this point, we're going to kind of take a look at the two different riders on Totilas and the difference in their riding styles and how this has really contributed to some of the problems that the current rider is having.
Yes, we see here Edward Gall on Ling in a performance in Aachen of 2005. I picked that piece because I wanted to create a little bit of a history and compare riders on different horses, and I think this is an excellent piece to start with. We see here now, when we watch Edward to start his test, you can see right away here a superior hip rotation. Yeah, he will support the horse tremendously off his seat. There's an incredible flexibility, and I think here's already one problem. This is very hard to copy. You can see here transition from extended trot to the passage. The rider gets a little lighter in his seat. Yeah, he doesn't confine it through his body. You can see a lighter touching, gliding leg aid that is used. So we would assume that this horse is pretty much very sensitively trained to weight and leg aids. Yeah, when we look at the principles of the technique here, we can see here again it's an extremely hip-oriented supporting rider, yeah, that will not create much confinement with his legs. The leg is rhythmical supporting here. In this case, he is also very centered. And we also want to look at his way to support a horse through his hands and rein technique.
And I think we need to point out how incredibly talented, how artistic Edward Gall is in his riding technique, because we're about to see, I think, a little bobble with this particular horse, which is noted for being a really hot horse. And Edward Gall basically just sits on the horse, does not overreact, does what he can to assist the horse to bring them back. And basically, it all has to do with the comfort of the horse.
I mean, in this half passes, it was so obvious. Yeah, this huge support, this shift of lateral hip motion in his seat with a little reaching leg just touching backwards. And here we come to another extension. You can see here there's a little attempt in the hand to keep the neck up and create some reach to the bridle. Yeah, so this is all positive. Yeah. I mean, we do not want to discuss here training methods. We go only into rider support here, yeah?
We just missed an opportunity, and hopefully our viewers saw it, where you could see exactly how loose Edward's legs are on the horse. I mean, at some points you can almost imagine seeing daylight between his leg and the saddle.
Correct.
And
which again leads to some little difficulties in half-passing horses, because you know you cannot really reach that far back and really press with the leg on those hypersensitive ones. You have to use touching placing aids. Yeah, but again, yeah. Go
well, I was just going to say that, you know, the compensating factor then is that you'll notice that in this particular rider, he's always shifting his weight into the bend, whereas Rath is the opposite. He's usually shifting his weight to the outside of the bend. And,
yeah, that's at least what we saw in our intro, right? But we will go deeper into this later.
It's a very key thing into the differences in the styles of the individual riders.
Right. And so here we can see a walk which has a stretch, not much overstep, but we also see that rider, he's very centered, in balance. The
nice
canter part, right, was mainly off the inside seat, and now it comes here to a little thing which is amazing to see. The horse explodes, right, and so what happens here is basically what I want you to know, or to see. Let's go back and play it right away one more time, and I will point out what the most important portion of this line is. Please go back to where it starts, and then our viewers, we want to pay attention to the alignment of Edward Gall's hip under extreme stress. I mean, this is unbelievable how the man is able to balance himself out, adjusting his hip motion to the horse's back and hip motion. This is unbelievable. His leg is not grabbing, his upper body is balancing, and now he comes into the canter pirouette and thinks that's hilarious.
There's
funny.
There's
Look
no
at his
panic.
face.
There's no panic
Absolutely.
in the rider. It's
this is gorgeous to say. Yeah, in terms of talking about what a rider can do, yeah, to perform with his horse together.
Sure.
Yeah? So here we can see lead changes now. there will be a little bit of an error at the end of the line, but what I want you to pay attention to is this swing of the leg here. It might even be too light of a leg in this case, so the horse didn't really change on it directly, but here look again, the swinging leg gliding with the horse, yeah, the centered seat position, and also what I want you to look at a little bit is how this rider helps the horse here in the pirouette with his rein. It's a little deeper, a little sideways on the right side, gets a little wider, so he uses the establishment of a contact to support this lifting uphill movement. So here we see now the one-tempis, yeah. These are also very much, the body, the leg swing is very limited. It looks more like a seat change, but you can also see that the rider is not going too deep in the horse, right? So it's rein to the weight, not so much leg pressure, yeah. The confinement over seat and leg is limited, but and the whole energy of the performance is channeled a little bit through the rein.
And this is a good place to really look at the rider's upper body. Notice that the shoulders are matching the shoulders of the horse, and there's not an extreme amount of movement. All of the movement essentially is through the hip and through the lower body, whereas his head and his shoulders are always pretty stable.
Right, and there's also a tendency in the rider, you can see that whenever something comes a little bit under more confinement, more pressure, he will get a little lighter to make life easy for the horse's back, yeah? Here again, you can see the leg is nearly forward on the elbow, yeah? So it's all very hip-oriented, ridden to the
Right
head.
there, you could see the release of the leg
Right.
just before the transition.
Right. So there was collection, which creates a little confinement out of a hard forward-driven horse, and the rider liberates it, yeah? Liberates it to allow it to perform without being confined in all three areas.
And limit the potential of a spook from a hot horse.
Exactly. There's no fear in the horse because it knows it can move, and we saw that in that bucking line. So here we come now to the final salute. We will see in the rider's face the whole concentration, and I thought that was a good piece to start.
Very good. Okay, let's go ahead, and we're going to go ahead and advance to the next video.
Yes, our next video, Russ, we don't want to play it right away because we stop here, please, because this is a very interesting instant comparison, because we will see now Matthias Rath on a horse Triviant being under clapping pressure of the audience. There was some applauding, and the horse will show an extravagant reaction, which will lead to a similar buck that we just saw with Ling, and we want to go into his body language responding to that situation.
A very different response to that particular situation. Let's go ahead and see if we can...
We can maybe go backwards, yeah? On a big screen.
Oh my. You gotta love technology.
Well, we can probably... So, let's go back. We can probably...
Here we go.
edit.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and just back it up a little bit so we can look at that.
Yeah, so when he enters...
Here we
So
go.
pay attention to his body language now. There will be some clapping, so look at him. So he will go back, and all his balance he will get tighter in the leg, and his solving the problem happens way more in the shoulders, right? And through the hand. So there's not so much hip alignment, it's shoulder alignment, yeah? So now he walks here, so we can see that there will be a bit of a canter, and then there will be a walk transition. I want you to watch the next canter departure, which is mainly through his neck with some little leg, and so he will enter the class. When we look at him from the side right now here, he looks very placed on the saddle. However, look, his lower body is really not matching the canter stride. Everything goes a little bit more through his neck and shoulders. Yeah? So we come to this halt transition where he is basically halting, and at the same time his legs glide backwards, which would be for a sensitive horse on the leg initially a forward driving aid. So it would be controversial.
Right.
So here we start the performance now. So we want to look at his body language on the horse. We will see right away a difference, which I would point out here, this is a lengthening, so there is no hip rotation in this lengthening. There will be a little bit of a rhythm fault by the horse eventually being a little bit overridden. You will also see in the whole performance the right curb rein will never be connected. And by looking here at the first right half pass, that will be extremely irregular. You can see it for this level. Of course, we are talking here Grand Prix, yeah?
And we're also looking at a distinct difference between Roth and Gall, whereas Roth is sitting to the outside of the bend and Gall sits to the inside.
Yeah. That is obvious here in the left half pass. Yeah, there's a little tendency to slide a little bit off to the right. At the end of the line, he will adjust his riding a little bit. We come now here to a transition where he throws his seat backwards in the halt, which is also considered a driving aid. We have a backwards leg for the rein back, so horse is a little bit behind the bridle. Now the leg never changes, and we come to an overriding situation again. So there is no, like, okay, rein back would be confinement and then ease up in the body and let the horse bloom, develop towards the next step. Yeah?
It is amazing. You can see significant rhythm faults with this particular horse and rider combination. And it is, I think, something that we should point out that, you know, when you're live and you're watching this type of performance, it's very difficult sometimes to be able to absorb all of these different issues.
I would like to go a little bit into this piaffe here. We can see in this rider a lot of neck and shoulder movements. The horse barely moves the feet. The horse really got a little crooked. And honestly, I have seen him on multiple horses. It seems to me that that lack of really supporting a horse from his lower body leads constantly to problems to piaffe correctly or show the exact amount of steps required. So here in this walk, we can see the same thing again. The whole motion of his seat mainly happens in neck and shoulders. Yeah? And so, as we say, Sally Swift, riding from the center is not happening here. Yeah? So we come here now to a walk portion. So we also want to pay a particular attention to the rider's positioning of his hands. We might now think here that this horse, because it looks so light in the hand, is in self-carriage, but I want you to be very critical in terms of looking at the extensions and the portions where it requires to take hold of the bridle and get wider, longer in the frame. That is not really happening here. So now we come here to a canted part, which is mainly created of the outside leg, which we will see immediately in the horse. See, it hits the bridle and scoots a little bit of the over eight, so a little bit inside seat would be much more effective here. Yeah? And now we come again to this seat position where we say, okay, this rider is a German rider, and to me it looks like he works a lot of deep seat, tough leg, trying to be light in the hand. But that doesn't work for every horse. Yeah?
We're looking at the changes here and also the use of the leg.
Right. We see in the changes there's an exaggerated leg swing, and also there's a very strong tendency to come off balance in his tall upper body, which is a challenge for the horse to maintain the balance as well. Yeah. So he tips very sideways. Yeah. So here again, so we will approach a period. I want you to pay a lot of attention to where. Oh, sorry, we approach a zigzag here. So we pay attention here
seat
again
positions
to the
the
leg
outside.
swing, right? A little bit out of the bend. Yeah.
Driving, pushing.
Yeah. So it's a lot of leg pressure, seat pressure. So this technique, what he uses, is completely the opposite as Edward Gall, because he is a deep seater leg rider that tries to get the horse off the hand.
Sure.
Where Edward Gall would be a touch and glide leg with a lighter position. So we have
I think we
here
need
the
to back up just a little bit so we can really get a good view of the position of the leg and how far he actually brings his foot back.
Yes.
Almost to the hip in some instances.
Right. And on another horse we will see later that will get even more extravagant. Yeah. So I will come back to the technique. This is a rider that prefers to sit deep in the horse, yeah? That prefers to work a lot of leg pressure. Look here again, in the period he sits off to the outside. Yeah? There is not much support in the hand to support the elevation of it. There's a little bubble in these changes there. So now we come to the next pirouette. Again, there's not much effort here to support the horse into the carriage through the contact. Yeah, and we could also see again that there was a positioning again. Both pirouettes he sits off to the outside. Yeah.
Okay, let's see, we're coming up here towards the end of our portion of this video.
Right, and here again the interesting thing is this is extended trot, and where would be the reach forward to the hands? The horse just remains a neck position. So if we would think this would be really in self-carriage, self-carriage is not only described by a steady position, there must be changes in terms of neck, in terms of ground covering and more reaching out, or being a little bit more on the vertical. So here's a piaffe again. We can see the motion in the seat is not as supportive. Yeah,
not a whole lot of lift then.
Right, no
the
lift
horse.
and no really. There's no leg swing. There's really not much going on that would create a better movement here.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and now switch things a little bit and look at another ride.
So yeah, so now here we see Matthias Rath on a horse that he took over from his mother-in-law, Sterntal UNICEF. That was a maid horse that already competed on those levels before he got to ride it. And so we go here through a performance that happens at the World Equestrian Games in 2010. We can see here there's a lot of driving going forward into the bridle. Again, we want to look at his hand position throughout the whole ride, whether he supports it or responds to it. Look at the tighter leg. In the extension, there's a driving seat here. This rider, to me, all I look at when I look at him is, does he ever communicate with the horse's need that moment?
Well,
and I have to be honest, Russ, I have seen him on 3 different horses. He will always ride what he likes to ride, but really not what the horse needs that moment. Yeah, he will always apply the same aiding, the same seat, the same hand, no matter what comes along.
Well, we're looking at the tail of this horse, and I think it's a little bit telling as far as the nervousness of the horse.
Right, tail display, of course, we all said Totilas had a lot of tail display, but here in this horse there is not much any different. Yeah? So we cannot make this a national affair. Yeah? But we just have to really look what are the facts here.
Sure.
Yeah? So we come to the lengthening. I would give him credit here. He could create a little bit more reach to the bridle. Yeah. So now the video gets a little bit bumpy here, but again we come into the passage, and really what I'm missing here is a active, supportive lower hip seat work. Yeah. And so as you can find horses that will function on that training system and with those type of seat, yeah. But I mean, when we look at horses that are hypersensitive to the seat, hypersensitive to the leg, this technique does not really work here. Yeah.
So I think we're going to advance things a little bit and see if we can cut up to the tempi changes, because I think that was something that we were interested in looking at.
So first we come here again to a little passage, and then the piaffe transition. Again, you will see only the limited number of steps. It won't be 15 steps at all. There might be 7 or 8, a little forward. So there is a deficit in the rider. I would say, studying all his performances, I would say he is a little bit battled in the changes, by really being able to follow the horse's bend within the change. I would say that he has difficulties to piaffe and supports the horse there, and also there is some technical difficulty in supporting a pirouette correctly.
And once again, we're reinforcing that driving seat position where he's basically tipped a little bit back and pushing the horse forward.
Right. So here we come now to a half pass and canter. You can see there's a lot of neck. Yeah. There's not much hind end in this. There is an ongoing tail, right? And actually, it looks like he positions himself again a little bit against the bend of the horse. And here we have the same thing. The drive comes from the outside seat bone. Yeah. So what should happen is he should sit on the inside and really drive the horse through the outside leg. So now we come to a line of two tempis, and here we will see a tendency in his seat to rotate in the shoulder and fall a lot out of what the bend of the horse really provides. You can see that here, yeah. So there's a lot of exaggerated shoulder rotation, and I believe maybe he feels that he should do something to support the change of bend in the horse. However, he does it too high in his body.
Sure.
So here is now a one tempi line, and I want you to watch the swinging leg. It will nearly reach up to the hip of the horse. And then when we think about a horse like Totilas that is hypersensitive to leg and seat, I mean, this will drive the horse probably a little bit over the edge. Yeah? So we move a little forward with our video. And this is also interesting. He will perform here extended canter, but you can see the horse is never really straight. It's a lot of hanging into the right rein, holding the right bend, and then at the end there will be a change. So for my taste, yeah, this is way too one-sided in the rein contact.
Yeah, I think we're coming up here on coming close to, we just have about 40 more seconds here of performance, and then we'll move on to our next video.
Right. It was also interesting, if you want to, we don't want to rewind it, but for our viewers to watch the techniques that he uses to ride the pirouette here, this is the same thing here. It will start off the outside leg. That is for a horse that is sensitive to being lateral over-aided, not so good of a technique. Yeah. Also, the lift in the hand, the support of the rotation is not really happening. And of course, I mean, we just try to point out things that are a continuing story that could impact a horse that is way more sensitive towards supportive riding in the seat rather than expecting to perform away from your seat. Yeah?
Okay, I think we've got another
passage, and then we will come to sort of a piaffe here, where again we see a lot of moving in the top line in the rider, not much leg, and this piaffe is basically for World Equestrian Games, it is not even happening.
Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and stop the video here, and we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back after our brief break. Alex, what do we have up next?
Well, next would be Edward Gall on Totilas 2010 World Cup freestyle. We chose to pick a lot of freestyles because that would be rider-horse combinations really performing on the strongest what they feel they can do. And so we picked this particular piece to talk a little bit more about supportive riding in ways of disguising maybe some things and lifting the horse up again to perform on maybe beyond what it would like to do or what it offers in it, and you discover it, right?
Sure, and I mean, why don't we just go ahead and say art, because the freestyle is about art, it's about connecting with the horse and basically, as you said, showing the high points and trying to maybe not show the low points of each particular horse.
Right. So let's go ahead and look at this.
Okay.
Here we will also take a critical look at the body language, the leg position, how the rein supports the ride. So we can see here already the enter. Yeah, there is a fairly loose leg again. We compare this to Ling. The style of the rider will never really change. This is a very gifted rider that has an incredible potential. Following horses' backs with his body. So we will look at this here now. We see a passage. What I want you to pay attention to during the whole ride, we can see quite often the rider's left hand being a little bit more back than the right one. That relates to that the comfort accepting rein of this horse is probably more the left side, and so he uses it a little bit here to stabilize the contact. Yeah. So here
once again we have a leg that's very, very loose
Right.
lower leg.
Right.
Much of the movement is done through the hip.
Yes.
The upper body is stoic. I mean, his head and his shoulders simply don't
do
move.
not move. And in this last piaffe, we could also see again the seat relief coming a little forwards. There was actually a little release in the hand even to take seat and leg confinement of the horse. Here in this lengthening, however, you can see again the frame question is not really changing much. Yeah, the biomechanics of the horse, of course, are extravagant. There is hind end activity, maybe a little bit too much front end. But what I want you to also look at is the support of the rein to make this happen. Yeah, here we have the half pass to the left. He initiates it again with the accepting left rein. You can see the left leg is really loose. The right leg just touch and glide. Here now half pass to the right. Pay attention to that seat. That is so hyper elastic. So even if the horse would have some weaknesses in the back to carry through these movements, this rider massages it out of that horse.
And the rider is continually basically shifting his center of gravity towards the bend so that the horse is able to stay underneath the rider in perfect harmony.
Right, we could see here in this lengthening also, I mean the shoulders tip a little bit forward, we would say maybe the tummy is even coming a little backwards. Here in the passage again, a gliding leg just touching a little backwards. I also want you to pay a lot of attention when Edward Gall writes transitions passage piaffe, his leg position will not change. It is the same position whether he piaffes or passages. So these movements are very hip created, and when you rewind your memory, what I said before about the other rider, he has a huge deficit in doing this.
But I think we need to go back to the elementaries as well to notice how uphill the horse appears to be. The head position is near perfect. It's on the vertical.
I wouldn't say that. Sometimes the neck position is a little tighter, so we have to be honest with that. It's not really perfect. Here is a little tilt in the neck, for example. Yeah, but I would say that the compression to the hand is justified by not compressing the horse on seat and leg. So we always want to come from that route to understand what's happening here. Yeah?
But we are in agreement that the horse appears to be uphill.
So horse there's no doubt about that. This horse is absolute world class. It's an outstanding animal. It will ride no matter what you apply to it. Yeah. So if you want to make it hot off the leg, it will do it. If you want to make it quieter, it will do it. This horse, as more often I see it, as less I find any inner tension in this horse-rider combination. Yeah. So, but again, the system prefers to have a hot off the seat, fine-tuned to the hip, fine-tuned to the light leg, right? Which this rider can execute perfectly, and so they will channel the energy a little bit more through helping through the bridle. Yeah? So here we have extension, then we come...
The rider is basically following the horse, not driving it.
Right. In this period, I wanted to see he's sitting with the bend, and the left rein supports the rotation a little sideways. You can see it here, and the right rein supports the lift. Yeah. So
and
there's no
outside
leaving the well. There's a little touching again, little pendulum, right? But there's no pressing here. Yeah. So we here see two tempes that seem to be a little lateral. The horse goes a little bit sideways behind, but you can see the alignment of the rider supporting the change, the gliding leg, and it helps even a little bit with half-holding right, left in the bridle to make this movement happen. So we have here another extension now. So again, this needs to be a little bit critical. Looked at, the frame is never changing. So basically the rein stays always the same, whether we extend or we don't.
But the rider is always supporting the horse with the rein. You can see
absolutely. There's elasticity, following, communication. This is
and the payoff is that the horse is very steady in the head.
So the horse will give anything he has to this rider, yeah, because the rider is a comforting rider for this particular horse and the way it performs. Yeah. So this is what we really have here is a little release in the hand, but this is why there are difficulties that the world talks about. We just have to accept that this man has incredible abilities to line himself up with a horse, to feel into a horse, to disguise or enhance on demand. On the spot he can do it. He is so intuitive connected with the animal. That is a thing that I believe is extremely, maybe nearly impossible to copy. So we come away from the training technique and just talk about rider abilities.
And the fact that the rider is really supporting the horse and providing the horse what it needs to perform its best performance.
So we come here now towards the end of the test. You can see there's already a little fatiguing in the horse. Maybe it tilts the neck a little bit. But again, this rider is just constantly responding to what this horse needs. And see, this makes this horse so comfortable under him that we never see any tension.
Well,
so
and I think that shows in the fact that this is a huge crowd, the applause, the horse really isn't reacting to the applause,
Nope.
which is something that in the more recent videos we've seen that the horse is just incredibly spooky and very fearful of noises and changes in the environment. And
right. There will be a spook that we see in a moment, and I want you to pay attention on the rider's body language response to that spook. So the horse comes here out, the rider completely relaxed, the horse also relaxed, the ear is forward, he studies the crowd, nothing really happens. So now he comes around and there will be a spook. And all what will happen is the rider adjusts his head. I mean, that is like fabulous, yeah? So there's no grabbing, there's no being terrified of being afraid of further explosions, right? I mean, this is very good, yeah?
Okay. I think we're going to go ahead and make preparations to advance to our next video.
Yeah, our next video will be now Matthias Rath on Totilas performing at the German Championships in Balve in 2011. So here we want to pay attention again on the rider's way to communicate with this horse. Yeah? So we can see here in the initiating the piaffe, he leans back, he doesn't get light, there's lots of wiggling in the neck, in the shoulders, the hip again is not supportive, and I want you to pay attention to the leg position. When we come now to from transition here, passage, the leg is backward, a little straight, yeah, not so far back as the previous rider had it. Now we piaffe, and the leg gets further back, and it causes immediately a disruption, misfunction in the rhythm of the horse. That was extremely obvious. Actually, I believe that the left spur of the rider got as far as to the left stifle of the horse. Yeah?
And then the other thing that we want our viewers to start to notice is with this combination, the steadiness in the bridle is essentially gone. The horse's head is no longer in that
you can see here in this diagonal lengthening, Russ, the curb is basically horizontal. Yeah, so I mean that is basically not so good. The angle of the curb is not in the required. That means the horse leans a little bit on the hand, and I believe that this could be the fact here because this rider is extremely seat and leg driving.
And the use of the seat, the weight is shifted to the outside of the bend, so once again it's driving.
Right, and the hip rotation, you can compare this with Edward Gall. The hip rotation in this rider never really happens. He will line up his shoulders, yeah, but basically from the Sally Swift riding of the center, nothing is going to happen here. Yeah? We can see also here in the extended trot there is some sort of shaking hand that we didn't really see with Edward Gall. He would just place his hand a little bit on the neck, yeah, and the horse would just drive into this contact, where here, for my taste, to take a horse like this over, there's too much mobility. What we really have to point out here is this is a world record holder in dressage scores, and that would be considered a top quality schoolmaster purchase. Yeah?
And this horse, I mean, the forte is in the passage, and we're seeing some irregularities here,
right,
as well as the total loss of that stoic head position.
Yeah, we also can see in all of these forward portions, the extensions, there's always this tight shoulder position, leaning back, going deep into the body, where Edward Gall would rather prefer to be a little bit light ahead and let everything flow away under him. Yeah, so he would liberalize this horse. Yeah? It could at any time it could just disappear right in front of him, where this rider rather likes to hold it on seat and leg. So here we can see now this walk. There is, again, for my taste, this is probably a little bit too mobile again, yeah, in terms of upper leg. You can see the canopy part, outside leg depart. It was very clear to see an outside backwards reaching leg that would use the spur a little bit to make the depart.
And a bit stressed.
That's right. We can see here in the half-pass zigzag, which he will perform. Look, the position is, when you look at where the seat is, it's always a little bit off the bend. Yeah. So I mean, we put a straight line over the horse's neck. I mean, at the end, it's very clear. He is off to the outside. Yeah?
And this is a horse that's accustomed to having a rider who's
that completely aligns. So
yes.
so as more often those incidents happen, that the hip and the body position, yeah, come out of the bend, where the horse is so used that everything glides with it, as more tension it creates. Here we have a pirouette. Now this is extremely interesting. The seat is to the outside. The reins, the hands get down.
And the driving leg.
Right. The contact is dropped basically. There is no help on the bridle, yeah, and there is a lot of driving leg. So now the horse comes down on the forehand, and basically the whole pirouette loses a lot of carriage. Here we have now the two tempes, the huge leg swing, huge body impact causes a tension and a mistake in the line. So that is not surprising, because the horse starts out being over-aided to begin with, and of course if you keep over-aiding it, at one point the whole thing will explode, and it didn't even explode, it responded to what this rider aided it to do. Yeah. So here now we have another pirouette. There's outside seat, the outside leg, the spur is really basically digging into. There is again no rein lift or support to make the movement happen.
And as opposed to Edward Gall, the whole pirouette is flat.
Right,
the horse is no longer setting
there's
back.
no communicating. The phone line rein is not used. There's no Verizon 3 bars in the hand here. Yeah, I mean it's flatlined. Yeah. So here we come now to the next situation. We can see in the turns, right, again, off the bend to the outside. I mean, he gets so often out of balance, like here in these changes. Again, hyper-rotating in the shoulders. Literally, nearly, we would consider this for a world record holder in dressage scores. He throws his body around on the horse like the horse can't do the movement. Yeah? So we have to be a little stiff here, yeah, and give people a wake-up call to realize what is happening. Yeah? So here we come now we can see the head bobbing basically. I mean, the strength of the horse is the passage by no means. That is proven.
Effortless.
Yeah, and so here we have now suddenly a contact problem, a tense problem towards the halt transition. And for my taste, this ride in his home country of Germany had been way overscored with an 85% that I think was inappropriate.
Okay. Okay, so we've taken about 30 or 40 minutes now to look at the distinct differences and the way or the style that Roth versus Gall ride. And you know, the question that was brought up is truly what has happened to Totilas, and obviously the only thing that's happened to Totilas is that there's been a change in rider.
A rider change has happened, and maybe the attempt to change the horse, which there was really no necessity. As I said before, we go out and buy the world's ever-leading best dressage horse ever with the highest world record scores. So the International Judges Forum must like it to give them that. So there is no need here to change the horse towards the rider. What has to happen is you buy a made horse, so you pay a price for that, being willing to adopt in your whole aiding language towards what this horse has learned to do, how it performed, and how it came to this level of success.
So it just doesn't really make sense to buy up until now what we've seen as the perfect dressage horse and then reschool it so that it's rideable by its new rider.
Absolutely, absolutely. That would be ignorant, yeah, to make a horse that is suited as a rider that is already had proven to be an athlete of excellence. This horse will ride whatever you do. And I mean, we can see in all the studies that we do on this horse, we might debate the neck position, we might debate the length band of the horse. However, what is undebatable is that the mental stage of the horse with Edward Gall was quiet. There was no fear.
It was
there
free.
Was no
freedom
anxiety,
of movement,
right?
expression.
I wouldn't even say that. I'm just talking about, is there when a spook is, how much does it react? Is it getting anxious? Is it doing a lot of rhythm changes? So the horse had trust to the rider and had really these two had melted together. I mean, there is nothing else to say. Yeah?
Okay, so I think we should kind of go on the final journey of this presentation now, and you brought something up about the neck position, and you know, the word is that this horse is going to get a new trainer.
Oh, yes, I was quite surprised to learn in the press that we are trying to go now into directions that we had cursed so hardly a year or two ago, and only because the horse changed over the border, our whole nation has to accept the fact that our training system will change over the border as well. That's why I am willing and ask you to produce this piece, because it's my deepest desire to point out very clearly here that Germany cannot accept the fact, and based on that there is so much things to work on before we change the horse, I want the community to be aware of this.
So our next video is our final video that we're going to show with Wrath riding Totilas, and I think we need to point out to our viewers that there's little more than a week separation between the first video that we saw, which was titled What Has Happened to Totilas, and the video that we're about to see. And I think that most of our viewers are going to be able to notice a significant difference in how this horse complies to the rider, but I'll be perfectly blunt, the position of the neck.
Yeah, it is also interesting, of course, when we go, we picked a video where we have no German commentary on it and also no representative of that family talking to the press. However, you will find videos where will be a statement of the relatives talking to the press, justifying a trainer change towards Chef Janssen. And we all want to look now here on this particular video whether we can see already the handwriting on the wall.
And with that, we'll go ahead and proceed to our next video. And I think that we should point out that you're going to notice right off the bat that there's some significant differences with this pair from the standpoint of the head is way steadier than it was in the first video.
Yes, we can say that. However, yes, I would say it a little bit different. We can see now here the horse is overflexed. It is a little bit behind the vertical. Yeah, there is basically. I would look at this from a perspective that we all condemn the tight neck, and now we will look at here at a brilliant 15-minute performance just showing that. So. Here in this side, whatever, we don't even know whether this is a sideways movement or is it just a trot over the diagonal. Yeah. Was the attempt to do a half pass or was it trot? We can see again in the turn down there the rider has not changed much yet. He still sits a little bit off balance in the bending portions. What is a little bit changed here is you can see at his leg position he's trying to do a little bit more.
I think we've just got some slow connection speeds. We're going to have to just live with it at this point. And
but we can talk about it, and so it will be fine. We can see here some changes in his leg position, however not so much in his center and shoulder work. Yeah, so it's more gliding now, so it's not so confining. However, we also want to make clear to the spectator this program here, what they show here, is very, very basic, and when I looked at it I was basically stunned to see that we in Germany would...
This is a really good place to stop, because you can really see the rider himself is still setting to the right.
Right.
And
well, it was right. It was a right turn, right? So I mean, but here, for example, the horse does a shoulder in, but again, for me, that looks like the position is a little bit off to the left. Yeah. So is this a perfect alignment with the bend? Also, again, what I want to come down to is this program. What we see here is extremely basic. It is a little bit third level with some very little piaffe passage. You can see, for me, this horse looks now more like basically draw rein presented. It always has the same same neck. When we do a lengthening, it goes further down, it doesn't reach up. You can see the hind end activity is really not as natural as a lot of people. This transition is like nothing I have ever seen do this horse before. You do a trot transition, and you can see here while the movie stops basically, I mean the horse leans now on the bit. So we are way further away from what we would think self-carriage should be or not. The whole transition was on the forehand. Yeah, I mean that is obvious. So here we do now a little walk with some calming the horse down. But again, what stunned me the most is that I could hear people applauding watching this couple perform a line of two tempis. I mean that is intermediate one. So are we that appreciative now that we say, oh my God, he can do two tempis on the horse without a problem? I mean, this is where are we living? Yeah? We need to take pride in our nation. So here we can see like a canner down the long side. The rider is off to the right again. It nearly looks like he has an uneven stirrup. Yeah? The right leg is deeper than the left side. I mean, that is all things where, I mean, that needs to be addressed, yeah? Before we go towards changing the horse towards the person. Yeah? There is lots of things that we can observe in our set that we produce here, yeah? That could lead to maybe a different approach towards the whole scenario. So again, that will be here now, it's a very basic presentation. However, what we realize now, the horse seems to be more suited towards this rider's particular style to ride, because he likes to drive over his body, he likes to confine with the leg, and now we created already a horse that is leaning on the bit literally, so now he can really have his hands where he wants them to be and finds comfort because everything seems to be now connected.
And going along with that, we can also see that the overall expression of the horse has been muted. It's no longer the same horse with expressive movement. It's subdued.
Right. It looks very well tempered. Yeah. I doubt that, of course, you can make an animal bloom this way. It rather looks now more robotic. Yeah. And I mean, here we saw that applause on the two tempi line. This is really not so good. Yeah. I wonder whether we could speed up this connection at one point, but. Here again we see that on the short side, when the applause started, right, there was an instant freezing in the rider's position. He got tighter in his shoulders, tighter in his lower back. So basically what really has to happen here is apply intuitive feel, yeah, and come to a inner connection with the horse.
Okay, so we're basically just seeing a little bit more of the same. Now we're doing the ones and
but they're hopping
two-footed,
behind. Yeah.
yes, two-footed plant, and it's almost as though the horse's movement is being restricted or contained.
I mean, all what has happened is the confinement got a little bit more severe, so basically the horse has not so much chance to develop, right? But that also means if it doesn't have much chances to develop under a rider, it will not show the highest potential that is in it. So now we come to a more steady, flat performance, yeah, that will not pull people off their seat. So I think we should take maybe a little break here.
Okay, welcome back. We're going to go ahead and proceed with our video.
Yes, and so in this, we are now in the final stage of this presentation. We saw the one tempi, so now we will see a little bit of Piaffe passage. So here is the passage again. That is, of course, the strength of the horse. However, you can see now the tendency as it should elevate, it gets tighter in the neck somehow. Basically, it gets very mouth active. So basically, hind end activity is nearly impossible here because the neck is so confined. Yeah, and now there comes an applause, so it gets a little hyper. We continue in passage, but I really want you to pay attention to the final salute that is happening here and the communication between horse and rider that are now presenting a horse that seems to be so much more quiet in the neck and so much more steady tight in the neck, right? So there's not so much these contact problems, and it seems to be more connected. But I want you to look now. So he's petting him here a little bit, and the horse gets a little tiny hyper. So now what I want you to look at is here. We do a halt. So the leg opens a little, so the horse moves already sideways. Now, so he pulls his, he does his salute, and now what he will do is he will pet the horse from the right side with the hand, and the horse, what it looks to me, will shy away from his hand that will try to touch him on the neck. And so he will move a little forward, and now we can see here, it comes from the other side, also the horse looks a little hyper now, right? And so that is something which I really want to point out here. This could also be the moving crowd, of course, yeah. But I think for me, as a horseman, right, to see this response to this right hand patting the neck is basically when you try to touch another person or your girlfriend or whatever and say, shy like this. I mean, so there is something going on in the total communication system that is not so good.
So our closing video that we're going to watch here in just a minute is something that actually Alex found today, and we just thought it was really appropriate to take a look at this video, and we're going to basically just allow our viewing audience to watch the video and kind of draw their own conclusion as far as the performance of the horse and truly where Totilas has gone from when he was being ridden by Edward. I think the video we're going to watch actually is a stallion exhibition in the Netherlands.
2010 at Hertog-Bosch, and what I want to point out to the viewer here is you will see here now an Edward Gall that will exhibit the horse. That is basically, it is not a freestyle, it is not a horse show, it's an exhibition as a stallion. This is the same what these people do here.
Sure.
They exhibit it as a breeding stallion. And in this particular video that we have found for you, you will see how Edward Gall is now maxing the horse out to its fullest potential, and sometimes even comes a little bit tiny in the lengthenings over the really what is in top of the horse. Yeah. However, I want you to look at this critical and think about the relaxation portion of it in comparison to what we see here. Yeah?
And we realize that our video has been a little bit lengthy, but we would encourage you to stay with this final video all the way to the end, because the other thing that's very telling is that the Totilas of 2010 basically is... I mean, you can't say spook less, because there is a little bit of spook, but what you're going to see in the end of the video is phenomenal of what the comfort level of this horse was with Edward Gall.
Yes, and the comfort level of the rider. He will host a speech with a microphone that had been handed by somebody from the ground to him. He will sit on the horse and talk through a microphone to the audience. You will also see a spectacular, comparing to this here, the walk transition that I had already criticized. In that next video you will see a transition from a nearly overpowered trot to a perfect walk. And
I think this is a good place to end our commentary. We're going to go ahead and start the video and allow our audience to watch this closing video. And coming here from professionalhorseservices.com, my name is Russ Edgington once again.
And I'm Alex Girding, and we hope to see you again in the future.
Yeah, we hope you have a really good day. Welcome back to professionalhorseservices.com. I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update, how strongly Alex and I feel about this piece that we're working on, and the whole issue of what's really happening with Totilas. We had to take a little bit of a break because we are in the middle of some severe thunderstorms and actually a tornado warning.
Which is quite fascinating for a European to go through a tornado warning.
Yes, it is. But that was part of the reason why we had some issues with the download of the previous videos. But we are so passionate about the horse, and truly, as we said earlier, this is all about the horse. And we thought we would close our presentation with a video, as we mentioned earlier, of Edward Gall riding Totilas in 2010. This is a stallion presentation that took place in the Netherlands. And I think we'll go ahead and start it.
Well, Russ, I also want our viewers, before we do this final piece and talk about it, because after that we will be gone for a little while, and maybe you find us again on the internet, but I want to tell them that we will produce more sets towards this topic. Yeah? This is now a set that we produce that is more targeting the rider, the aiding. We will also produce a piece that will talk about Dutch and German training methods. To get a little bit more clarity, we will use a couple different horses and comment on those, and maybe you get some insight or at least some helpful discussion points from what we are providing here. Yeah?
And then I guess the other thing that I'd like to say is, while let's just be honest, we're not going to be politically correct from this point forward. The issue that you're about to see is something that I think that you would have to literally be blind to see the effects of roll cur. And of course, it's just our opinion that the training methods, the roll cur training methods, have now been used on Totilas, which has caused a significant change in 1 week. But we want people to take a step back and look at the brilliance of this horse, which is a world champion.
Honestly, Russ, by looking at this video that we are about to see, I have to say, I am not convinced that this horse had been really trained with this technique severely. That might have been applied at some time, but we have to respect the fact that Edward Gall is a rider that can use his body so extremely supportive towards a horse that I doubt that anybody in the world can copy that this time.
So let's go ahead and start the video, and we'll, ultimately it's going to be the viewer's decision whether or not they believe in the things that we've commented on today. But even if you don't, you've got to enjoy this particular video.
So here we can see the horse in preparing for the stallion performance. There was a little tension there, but again, what we always point out, he leans back, catches attention, and now in the PF again you can see that light, accommodating seat. So this rider is so intuitive connected with this animal. I think that is an incredible, unbelievable relationship between the two.
And obviously, by looking at the video, there are thousands of people in the audience. It's noisy. There's cat calls and whistles occurring, and this horse is totally unaffected because he trusts in his rider.
That's right. The rider will support it anytime. Here you can see there was a clapping, little tension, but look, the body is immediately there, helps it. No confining, no holding, no tightening in the seat, none of these things. Here's a patting on the neck. There's no twisting sideways or nothing. I mean, this is all. Also, I want you to look at Edward's face when he rides the horse. There's always a grin, a smile, no matter. There is never any like biting his teeth to push him through something. Yeah. So here we see now a passage, and this is a stallion performance. So what we have to understand, here he will edge him out pretty much. The horse will be maxed out in this. He will not show the horse like this, yeah. But this is like basically maxing it out to really show. I mean, what is in that animal? I mean, that's where we doubt whether that is real, but we can see it. So here's a half pass. You look at the hind end activity matching the front feet here. When he pushes him around the turn, it gets a little bit more exuberant. And I want you to see now this line here. So this is maxing it out. There will be a rhythm fault pretty soon. So right there, you could see it. Yeah. And but again, we see uphill tendencies in the horse. We don't see loose rein, free self-carriage,
no.
But for this extravagant motion, it has to have help through the bridle.
And it basically accentuates the whole idea of the support.
The rider looks sideways. He doesn't even focus on the horse. I mean, this is he can ride this horse blind. Yeah. And see, I just wish for my countrymen that they would start to read what this horse really needs and not try to blame it on the horse and shape it towards the rider that, in my eyes, needs a lot of help.
And I think that if our viewers focus on the piaffe and the passage, you're just going to see an incredible difference between
You
this
see
video and the
already
last
way
one.
more airtime, Russ. You can see, I mean, the airtime of the horse is better. Yeah, we can say some movements, the extensions are artificial, yes, but this is exhibition. Look at this, yeah. The horse does the best it can. There's uphill motion, and look at this transition. Incredible, incredible. This is like the horse is over trotted, literally, right, to the fullest potential, and it comes to this
Relaxed walk.
I mean,
we rarely
so
see
where would
the
be
horse
the lie in
reach.
this performance? There is no lie here. Yeah. So there's relaxation. There's no being waiting for something to happen. There's maybe a little rounder back in the rider. Yeah. When he picks up the reins, the head comes up a little bit. So. The rhythm or the regularity of that walk never changes, which is a nice thing about a stallion exhibition. You can just choose whatever you want to do. Here's that canter. There is no tightness, that is relatively carried. We come to the two tempers here again. We want to see how this rider supports this horse with his body. They are
No significant movement of the leg. It's just
Right.
effortless. It's
no,
as though they're
no
connected.
scooting of the
No.
seat, which we have seen in the previous videos quite a couple times on several horses.
And here we have an actual extension.
Right. And so it comes a little bit through the seat, yeah, to catch it, yeah. But see, then there will be also these little tiny releases, and the horse, I mean, for me, this horse has no fear. It will go for this rider through fire. I mean, here's a reward inside rain. I mean, Russ, this is a melting together of bodies, yeah, like Romeo and Julia. Yeah? I mean, perfect. Yeah.
And you look at how far the horse is coming through behind versus our past video where you had the double plant.
We want to look at
the
these one
changes.
tempers. There's no hopping here.
No.
This is all, every strike the
Perfect,
same.
clear.
Yes, there is no problem here. And the line is actually longer as it was in the previous exhibition. The release again. The perfect straight seat, that hold, it's all melting into that rider's body. He moves on the horse, he touches the horse. There's a little bit activity in the mouth, but here there's no backing of the hand and complete relaxation. And from here on, I would encourage our viewers to watch the final 5 minutes of this video on their own to really make their own judgment. How tense is this horse this day, this moment with Edward Gall? Thank you very much, Russ.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Signing out from professionalhorseservices.com.
Let it run.